Welcome to the Be Better podcast with Lee Barrison. True stories from Bakersfield's business owners and entrepreneurs. Lee is a local real estate broker that sold over 1,700 houses in almost 18 years. He is a husband, father, owner, and lead coach of Infinity Real Estate Services. And now it's time for the Be Better podcast.
What's up, guys? It's Lee Barrison with the Be Better podcast, coming to you live from Bakersfield, California, from the Infinity headquarters. Guys, real quick, thank you for joining the Be Better podcast once again. My name is Lee Barrison, and I want to thank each and every single one of you guys that have subscribed to this podcast. I want to thank everyone that's given us a thumbs up. 5-star review. It's much appreciated. We don't do this for money. We do this to impact your life and bring special guests to our show and talk about life and business and entrepreneurship. So with that being said, before we get started, I just want to send you guys a very genuine thank you ahead of time. So with that being said, guys, I got a special segment for you guys on this podcast. Somebody who I personally work with here at Infinity Real Estate Service. He joined our company in February.
Yes, in February.
And I want to introduce the one, the only Nate Mao. Say hi, Nate.
How you guys doing?
So Nate, let's hear a little bit about your story. So I know that you were in real estate back in the heyday.
Yes, I started real estate back in 2003, and I stayed there. For my first 3 months, I couldn't get a deal going, but the market got hot, and next thing you know, I'm doing 10, 15, 30 at one time. Jeez. But yeah, it was a good time, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, that's good, Nate. So how long have you actually been in the business for? In sales, I could say since I was 12, when my parents opened their first bakery in Shafter, and that's where I started learning about sales. Okay, good for you. So you've been in sales basically all your life, since mom and dad opened up a bakery.
Yes, and that's where I learned good service and good products to bring forth to the customer at a good price.
Good for you. Okay, fantastic. And you recently had a bakery. I mean, you just sold it, I believe, right?
Yes. When the market crashed, just like everybody else, I made too many investments, and I was young and bought things that I shouldn't have. But I was able to take whatever money I had to go open a shop in the Fresno area, and it was successful for 10 years. Made 1,000% profit from it, from the the purchase price to when we sold it.
Good for you, man.
Yeah.
So you flipped it for 1,000%.
Yes.
Good for you. So during recessions, I'm assuming that bakeries they're not hit as hard as the housing industry and a lot of other industries out there, right?
Yes, because everybody still got to eat.
Yeah.
Still need to get the sugar.
And it's hard to say no to donuts.
Oh, yes, it is.
Yeah. Okay. Well, cool, man. So the reason why I brought you on the show, right, is because you have a very, very interesting story.
Yes.
Okay, and before you start sharing your story, I personally witnessed I witnessed my mom's death, right? And when my mom passed away, during that particular time, there was right or prior to her death, there was a book that was written by James Garlow and Keith Wall, and it's called Heaven and the Afterlife, right?
Yes.
Anyways, Heaven and the Afterlife was a story of 30 plus near-death experiences, and the people came back to tell their story.
Yes.
Right? And so Nate has a story very similar to that. So
yes,
why don't we tell everybody what year it happened, and basically let's just start from the beginning.
It happened around 1999. During that time, I'll give you a little background. I never really had a belief. My belief was when you die, that was it. I was raised in a Buddhist family, but they never really practiced it. And so when I was growing up, I thought this was it. Life was life, and when you die, you die. That all changed one night. I was out in Bakersfield trying to sell my car so I could have funds to go to college, to continue my college education. We test drove the car. We went back to his place because he wanted to buy the vehicle. As we're going back, I remember getting out of the car, and I always put my seatbelt in before I closed my door. Mm-hmm. And as I was doing that, I hear footsteps behind me. You know, I turn around over my shoulder. I see a guy. He lifts up his shirt, and he just pulls out a gun. And I'm talking about 2 arm lengths away, not far.
So he's roughly like 8 feet away from you, basically?
Yeah, you can't miss.
6 to 8 feet.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So he shot me about 5 times, because each time the gun went off, the flash, it's like a bright image just burns in your mind. Mm-hmm. And I remember feeling like it was a dream. Like, I can't believe this is happening.
Were you
know?
in pain when the bullets hit you?
No.
Okay.
The strange thing was, I looked at my arm, because the bullet went through my arm. 1 went in my chest. 2 actually went through my chest. 1 went through my back. I was hit 4 times. He shot at me 5 times. I've noticed my arm was smoking because I had a sweater on, and you could see the smoke coming out. Then I start feeling the pain, and I start tasting blood, because one of the bullets went in through my lungs, and it punctured my lungs, and now I'm starting to, drown in my own blood, basically.
Right. Yeah.
And
brother.
yeah.
Crazy. Okay.
So after he shot me, I kind of rolled back into the car, and then I was thinking, let's go try to make it to the hospital, but I knew by my breathing that something's wrong.
Sure. Yeah.
So I drove down literally a house over, and I got out and yelled for help. And it was an ER nurse that I parked in front of.
What a blessing. Okay.
Amazing,
yeah,
right?
Great. Yes.
And so she comes out. She was working at then it was called KMC, Kern Medical Center. And she came out with towels and helped compress as I was laying on the street, literally dying. Mm-hmm. And I just remember, like, the funniest things go through your mind. And I was thinking to myself, I'm never going to have kids. I never tasted chicken Parmesan, the weirdest things, And
so here you are bleeding to death.
Yeah.
On the verge of death, and you're thinking about chicken Parmesan cheese.
Yeah. Like, this is something I haven't experienced yet. And I was like, man, life is ending now. But anyways, the ambulance came. It felt like an eternity. And when the paramedics came, I looked at the paramedics' eyes. I asked him, be truthful, am I going to make it? And I look back, I wish he lied. Yeah. Because he looked at me and said, it doesn't look good. Wow. With a serious tone. And I remember being pushed by, the stretcher. And then that's when I blacked out. And when I blacked out, it's not like I lost consciousness.
You still knew what was happening, or
it was one stream of consciousness. It's sort of like how when sometimes you're in a dream and you wake up and you're waking up into a different reality.
Sure.
Or so.
Yeah. Okay.
But I was still awake, if I could say that. And the first thing I noticed was I was floating, or I thought I was flying to the stars, and I see all these stars, and I was like, what's going on?
Were you going down?
See, I didn't know at that time, because I thought I was flying, but as soon as I realized I wasn't flying, I was falling. And these so-called stars weren't stars. They were actually eyes, red glowing eyes looking back at me.
Jeez Louise, okay.
And as I
got chills, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's crazy.
As I'm falling, I felt that I was at I can't even explain it. Only after, I came out through this experience that I learned about the bottomless pit. But if I could describe it, it was the bottomless pit. Mm-hmm. I felt this separation from God. Mm-hmm. And this is somebody I didn't really recognize because I didn't have a belief system.
Yeah.
The only thing I heard from God was when I did karate classes, and my sensei will say a prayer in the beginning, you know. And so
What was that prayer? Do you remember?
it was Romans 10:9.
Okay.
And it was burned. Yeah.
A verse in the Bible that he shared with you guys
Every time we start class, we say that prayer.
Yeah.
And so
So at the time, you like you mentioned earlier, you had no connection with God. You just thought, when I die, it's over.
exactly.
Right.
I just didn't have a religion or a belief system. And as soon as you get down there, you realize it was your choice. That's why I was there. I realized it was, I don't know, it was some type of communication, don't know, but it's a knowing. I knew that it was my choice that I walked away from God, and it wasn't him that walked away from me. And all of a sudden, the sadness and the emotions you feel from that, it's unreal. Like? You know,
it was like guilt and shame and loneliness.
It was all of that. It was guilt, shame, embarrassment. Just, it was like, how could I be so, dumb? Naive. Naive about it. And that's when
and you weren't raised.
No.
In a family that were true believers, right, in Christ?
Exactly. We never went to church, none of that, and so I was never around these things to have it, put thoughts in my thoughts. So as I got down there, I felt the sadness, and I could tell you the emotions there is more real than over here. I know it sounds crazy, but it is. Everything there is more vibrant. You could feel everything. And that's when I started getting ripped apart by these demons, and they were saying my name.
So those eyeballs were coming to you.
They were encroaching on me.
Yeah.
And then I just remember being ripped apart. And as I'm being ripped apart,
Were they saying anything?
They know. They know your name. I could tell you that. Right? Yeah. Wow. They were saying my name. It's funny because I could still hear the teeth gashing. And those words I only learned later from the Bible. And you could literally hear the teeth grinding, just the anger. It was So as that's happening, I start saying the only prayer I knew was Romans 10:9. And I knew my mistakes. So as soon as I say that prayer, it was like a laser beam, just boom, just, from the heaven just shine down on me. And it slowly started opening as it's
bright.
It was
blinding
bright.
Interesting. Wow.
As soon as it started opening, these beings, demonic, which, I soon later find out, they were in the shadows. They didn't want to be in the light.
Yeah.
They were afraid of it. And as the light gets brighter, I'm saying the prayers, tears are rolling down my eyes because, this is something no one ever expect, especially from a non-believer, know?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, I felt my body, which, is probably my soul, or what you want to call it, energy or whatnot, started lifting up. And as it lifted up, it's gaining momentum faster and faster. And then all of a sudden,
how fast do you think you were going? Was it like light speed?
It got to light speed, if I could describe it.
Man, brother, this is crazy.
Because I'm used to speed, so
sure,
it got to light speed, and all of a sudden, boom, I'm popped back in my body. And when I popped back in my body, if you ever had a dream that you're falling off a building, and when you landed, and you kind of wake up from that.
No, I've had those dreams before.
Well, this was the opposite of that. When I went in my body stood up. It sat up in a physical form, and I was in that same prayer.
In the hospital.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it sat up, boom, and tears were still rolling down my eyes, and I didn't, it was not like I woke up from a dream. Yeah. It was all one conscious stream.
Were you in a coma by chance, or induced coma, or anything like that?
Well, what I found out was I died twice on the operating table.
Oh, gosh.
while going through surgery. And I still, to this day, have a bullet between my heart and my spine.
Oh my gosh.
And it can't be removed because it's too dangerous.
Yeah.
They could either hit the heart or paralyze me. But I died twice on the operating table. I woke up to all these machines, the iron lungs breathing for me, my family there. And
how long were you in the hospital before you actually woke up?
I'm not sure. Probably like a day or so. But they told me they lost me twice. One time they lost me for a couple minutes, and they were just trying to bring me back.
They revived you.
Yeah. And once I came back into my body and realized what happened, first thing I wanted to do was share to all my friends.
Sure.
Because what I went through, I could tell you, I don't want my worst enemies to go through what I went through. And the sadness and loneliness you feel. I mean, if you think you're sad in this world, it's nothing compared to that other side.
Dude, amen, brother. Jeez Louise. Yeah, so I mean, in retrospect, or looking back, you weren't a believer. Obviously, I'm assuming you believe in now.
Of course, yes. I say my prayers every day, sometimes 2-3 times.
I bet. Yeah. So I mean, since that happened, Nate, right? I mean, what's your, what was your mindset like before you got shot? Were you?
I was a bad person.
That's what I was getting at. Were you living in sin? Were you just kind of
I was living in sin because, I now look back at it. If you don't have a belief system or, good moral background or good values, you start to lose it because you don't have no one to account for.
Sure. Right.
And, I wasn't a good person, because during that time, if you were looked at me wrong or anything, we'll start to fight. Yeah. And because I was raised in that environment.
That's just how you roll.
Yeah. Right. But after this experience, I changed.
What's your outlook on life now? I mean, when you.
Well, my outlook now, I want to help people. I want people to understand that you don't have to experience a near-death experience to know there's something there. And you could take it from me. There is, God is there. And I called out Jesus, and he came to pull me out of that place.
Sure, yeah.
And so, from then on, I became a believer.
Wow, good for you.
Yeah.
I'm glad you're here, bro.
Oh, thank you.
I really am. I mean, I'm glad I met you. I'm glad I know you.
Same here, brother.
So, like, when you finally got back on your feet, right? You like, what happened next in life? I mean, did you slow down a little bit? Did you?
I stopped doing things that I was doing before.
Sure.
I slowed down definitely. I started having that thirst for knowledge. So I started opening the Bible, reading the Bible, and try to understand what is this whole thing about life is.
Sure. Yeah.
And that's when I met this gentleman. He asked me, what do I want to do? And I told him I want to be successful. And he looked at me and goes, Nate, be a real estate agent. Even though my family was in sales and business, I wanted to find my own path.
Sure.
And when he said that, I just went to BC, looked up all the real estate courses I could take. I took it from Joe Newton, Michael Ted Winnington. He was my professor in law. Did all the classes. It just started my career.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And now you're serving people in a
yes.
different way.
Yeah. I serve people, and if they're willing to, I would share my story to them, but I don't want to be encroaching. But at the same time, I want them to know.
Sure. Yeah. Now, publicly, is this the first time you ever shared the story?
Yes.
I mean, you shared it with me and a few others.
Yeah, private. Yeah. But this is the first time I ever shared this story because, I'm always been kind of shy in a way. It's weird.
Yeah.
So
that's fine.
So I never really shared it much, but I felt now is a good time to share the story, and especially
in these times. I agree with you, Nate. I mean, man, great point. And I think that, or I hope, for anybody out there that might not be living right, or might not think that there is a God, or might not think that there's any life after the short span of life that we have here on earth, I think your testimony to anybody that's going to listen to this or watch this podcast, I sincerely hope that it strikes a chord with somebody out there, at least just one person, you know.
You know, even just one person,
Yeah.
you know, I'll be happy because that's one person that wouldn't have to go through what I went through, you know.
Yeah. Have you ever read the book, The Four Agreements, by chance?
No, I haven't.
Okay. I recommend that book. It's a
All
great
right.
read. Or you can listen to it on audio. But there's something in that book that the author recites in the book, and it says that, you know, there's love everywhere you look, right? So there's like love in the trees, there's love in the sky, there's love in the light, there's love in the sun, there's you know, love everywhere, right? But I think when somebody isn't living right, they fail to appreciate the trees, the sky, right?
Everything.
The light.
Just being awake.
Yeah.
Every day when I wake up, I give thanks because it's another day, a new day. And, you know, yesterday, that's gone in the past.
It's never going to come back.
Yeah, it's never going to come back. Tomorrow's not promised. So, you know, I'm thankful just being alive every day, just to give thanks. And I want everyone to know we're all brothers and sisters. You know, that was one of the things I was shown. I was going through this light warp speed, what you want to call it.
Yep.
And he was showing me things. You know, we're all, you know, if I could say we're like, you know, like a bright white light. When you put it against a prism, you see all the different colors. And what he showed me was all the different colors are each individual person.
Yeah.
But if you go back,
it creates brown people, it creates black people, it creates yellow people, it creates white people,
blue, purple.
Yeah.
It was just a
But
representation.
you hit it right on the head, bro. I mean,
Yeah.
we're all brothers and sisters. It's not
Yeah.
about if you're black. It's not about if you're white. It's about
Exactly.
we're humans, and we come in different shapes and sizes and colors and everything else.
Yes.
And everyone should be proud of who they are.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
And appreciate what they've been given. You all right? Thank you for sharing that, dude.
You're welcome.
Yeah, that was pretty good. So, so any last thoughts, Nate? You know, any last thoughts for anybody out there listening to the podcast that you can share with them? You know, that come to mind.
You know, I said prayers before I came here because I wanted, you know, God to give his message out to anybody that's listening, and basically to let you know that you are loved. And he never walked away from you. And all you have to do is talk to him in a prayer form. It doesn't have to be from, you know, any certain prayers. Just say it from your heart.
Like having a conversation with
Yes, like, you know, I talk to him, you know, like he's there because he is. That's the thing. We just don't see in our peripheral visuals. You know, it's not in our spectrum. So he is there, and you know, I talk to him, and you know, every time I say a prayer now, my whole body get goosebumps, and it doesn't matter what temperature it is. If I just start reciting any prayers, hairs go up.
I feel him.
And I feel him, and it sort of reminds me. It's like him reminding me that I'm never gonna leave you. Because we all get lonely at times.
Of course.
And we always wonder at times, but you know, every time I start wondering, all I have to do is say a prayer, and boom, you know, the presence there.
Good for you, man. Thanks for sharing that, Nate.
Thank you.
Now let's switch gears, because you are a real estate agent that works for Infinity.
Yes.
And so, if anybody in the Fresno area, or anybody in the Tulare area, or anybody in Visalia or Bakersfield, how do they get a hold of Nate Mao?
Just give me a call at 559-397-2956 or catch me on Facebook at Nate Mao Real Estate.
Perfect. Thanks, Nate. Appreciate
You're welcome.
You, bro.
Thank you.
Yep. All right, guys, it's a wrap. Be Better Podcasts. We want you to be better in all areas of your life, including your spiritual life. And I think that this podcast was right on time, especially considering the environment that we're in right now, not only with the government, but the racism, the protesting. It's a very strange world that we live in, and I think that it's been created by man. right?
Yes.
It's been created by man. And, after hearing Nate's story, I think it's important that we really, really recognize what's really important. It's not about what race you are. It's not about what, what political views you have or whatever.
Or how much money you have in your pocket.
Or how
it
much
doesn't
money
matter.
you have,
Yes.
right? I mean, that's something else I want to share with you is that God put us in a position where it doesn't matter how much money you have anymore.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
He's forcing us to see him.
Yes. And you can't stop that. Trust me. I've tried many times. Every time, he shows me a lesson, of course I don't want to go through it, but when you go through it afterwards, I'm thankful for it.
Yeah. It's learning.
Yeah. It's the learning experience.
Yeah. Right. All right, guys. Again, Nate Mao, Infinity Real Estate Services. Reach out to him if you guys have any needs to buy or sell real estate. Thank you, Nate, for joining us on this podcast.
Thank you, Lee. Thank you, Lee.
You guys be good.
All righty.